front row, huh? Good morning, everybody. Back in the summer of 2021, I read about a frightening story. A man named Michael Packard was diving for lobster just off the beach of Cape Cod. All of a sudden, the world went black and things felt very tight. He was in the mouth of a humpback whale. He said, "I thought to myself, there's no way I'm getting out of here. I'm done. I'm dead." But, as the Cape Cod Times reported, the esophagus of non-toothed whales is too small to actually swallow a human, but they could wrap their mouth around a very large object. Their mouths expand like parachutes to grab krill, I guess, and they can also grab a human and pull them in very tight. The whale came back to the surface, realizing it did not have little tiny fish, and started thrashing its head around, and then it spat Mr. Packard out with a dislocated shoulder and bruises all over his body. The evangelical press went bonkers. Do you know what Bible story they compared this to? I figured they should compare it to the Levitical prohibition against eating shellfish, because that seems like justice. But no, of course, they compared it to the story of Jonah and the whale. Some commentators said this is proof that Jonah's story is a historical fact. The trouble is that the whale part of the story of Jonah is just a fraction of the story of Jonah. There's a whole book about Jonah. Does anyone here who's not ordained know anything else that happens in the book of Jonah? All right, two nerds back there. The reason only two people raise their hand is because in Sunday school, we tend to only cover the whale part, because that makes for great artwork. But there is an entire story about God's love, and I want to start by summarizing it so we can put Jonah into context. It goes like this. Conveniently for me, it begins with the question, who is God calling you to be? God came to Jonah and called him to be a prophet. Jonah was a good Israelite, and God sent him to the city of Nineveh to preach redemption. Nineveh was the capital of the Assyrian Empire, which had recently invaded Israel, sacked it, enslaved many of its inhabitants, brutalized others, and was dominating it horrifically. God wanted a good Jewish boy to go into the lion's den and preach about God's love. Jonah behaved like most of us would. He ran away. He ran away until he ran out of land, then he jumped on a ship and started sailing to Turkey. God didn't like this, so God sent a storm to swamp the ship. The sailors somehow realized what was going on, and they threw Jonah overboard to stop the storm. It worked. And then, what happens next? No, the Bible clearly says large fish, actually, because marine biology had not been invented yet, and they did not discriminate between marine mammals and fish. So Jonah's in the belly of a fish. For 3 days, he contemplates his relationship with God. And then, as the King James Bible says, "And the Lord spoke unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah upon the dry land." Jonah's lying on the beach. Once again, God comes to him and asks Jonah, "Who are you going to be?" This time Jonah gets it. He walks to the city of Nineveh and he preaches repentance and love. He tells them that God's love is so vast that even the Ninevites, the most hated people, are included in God's love. And according to our folktale, every single one of them, from the king to the lowliest peasant, converted and turned to God. Jonah was very human, and this is where the story gets weird. He got mad at God because he didn't think it was fair that even the Ninevites could be forgiven. So Jonah sat down under a dead tree and sulked. And the story ends. Jonah didn't think the Ninevites deserved mercy. He thought they only deserved justice. But God's love was broader than that. In this story, an unlikely prophet gets sent to the unlikeliest of people with an unlikely message that God loved them. The miracle of this story is not the size of the whale, it's the size of God's love. The miracle of this story is that our Jewish forebears passed this story down over the campfire about God including the very people they hated. Now, inconveniently for me, stewardship is not mentioned once in the book of Jonah. At no point does God command Jonah or the sailors or the Ninevites to make a pledge to their congregation. So what is the connection? Why did we use Jonah and a whale in all of our paperwork and our banners for this project we're taking on? Jonah spent time in that whale symbolically wondering about God's call. And we know it was very difficult because he resisted it, and then he was mad about it in the end. I think that's the connection. Jonah is a story about calling. Jonah is a story about people who are called to God's love even more than they are called to God's justice. This story is about a man being called to God and then to share God's news with the people around him. I suppose we could extrapolate and say, clearly you're going to need some money to do that work, to help spread God's call to the world. That we are here to spread God's love and to challenge the world to change because of it. Now, in just a moment, we are going to hand out these little pledge cards, which ask each of us to answer that question, who is God calling you to be? We want everybody's feedback. On one side, we ask the question, who is God calling you to be? On the other side, there's an actual pledge card where you can make a financial commitment to Christ Episcopal Church for 2023. Many people have already done that online, including the entire vestry, and we are grateful for that. If you feel called to make a pledge, we would be grateful for that here today. But just as importantly, we want your response to that question as we try to figure out how Christ Episcopal Church meets a changing world that many of us are very suspicious of. In other words, we're asking you today to commit to a miracle. Not a magic whale, not a superhero lobsterman. We are asking you to listen for God's call and to share it with your sisters and brothers in this community. The miracle is each of us asking, who is God calling us to be, and then acting on it. Amen.